What if you spent your entire life becoming the person you thought someone else would love, only to discover that the past was never waiting for you? Jay Gatsby had almost everything. Every weekend, hundreds of strangers arrived at Gatsby's mansion. They drank his champagne. They danced in his rooms. They swam in his pool. They told stories about him. Some said he was a murderer. Others said he was a German spy. Nobody really knew who he was. And Gatsby didn't seem to care, because he wasn't throwing these parties for them. He was waiting for one person, a woman who lived across the water, a woman who had already built a life without him. And Gatsby had spent years becoming rich, powerful, and almost completely unrecognizable, just to have another chance with her. But here's what makes his story tragic. Gatsby wasn't trying to win Daisy. He was trying to prove that the past could be changed. And that belief would eventually destroy him. The Great Gatsby, the man who became rich just to be loved. Summer, 1922. America is experiencing one of the most extravagant periods in its history. Money is flowing. New fortunes are appearing overnight. Jazz fills New York. And on Long Island, a mysterious man named Jay Gatsby has built an enormous mansion. It's so extravagant, you might assume the man living inside must be enjoying every second of it. But Gatsby barely participates. Instead, he watches, from a distance, as strangers fill his home. He stands apart from the crowd, waiting for someone. That summer, a young man named Nick Carraway moves into a small house next door. Nick isn't rich. He isn't famous. And unlike almost everyone around him, he doesn't seem particularly interested in becoming either. But Nick has one advantage. He's Gatsby's neighbor. And one evening, he receives an invitation. Not to a normal dinner, to one of Gatsby's legendary parties. Nick walks into a world that seems almost unreal. Champagne flows. People dance. Music fills every room. Guests arrive without invitations. Most of them don't even know Gatsby. They simply heard that his parties were spectacular. Rumors spread through the crowd. Who is he? Where did his money come from? Did he inherit it? Did he kill someone? Is he secretly a spy? Nobody knows then. Nick finally sees him. And Gatsby is nothing like Nick expected. He's not loud. He's not arrogant. He's not surrounded by people. He's standing quietly, watching the party he created. Later that night, Nick notices something strange. Gatsby is standing alone outside. Across the water, a tiny green light shines in the darkness. Gatsby reaches toward it. Nick doesn't know why, and neither does the audience, not yet. Because that little light is the key to understanding everything about Gatsby. To understand the green light, we have to go backward. Before the mansion, before the parties, before the fortune, there was another Gatsby. His name wasn't really Gatsby. He was born James Gatz. He came from a poor family in the Midwest. He wasn't born into wealth. He wasn't born into privilege. He simply refused to accept the life he'd been given. As a young man, he imagined himself becoming someone extraordinary. And then, he met Daisy. Daisy Buchanan was everything Gatsby wanted. Beautiful, wealthy, elegant, and completely connected to the world he could only dream about. Gatsby fell in love with her. But there was a problem. He was poor. Daisy wasn't. So Gatsby made a decision. He would transform himself. He would become rich. He would become important. He would become the kind of man Daisy could never leave. Then he went away. And while he was gone, Daisy married someone else, a wealthy man named Tom Buchanan. Most people would have accepted that the relationship was over. Gatsby didn't. Years later, he returned with a fortune, a mansion, a new identity, and a house positioned almost directly across the water from Daisy. And suddenly, the green light makes sense. It isn't simply a light. It's a promise. Gatsby believes Daisy is waiting for him. He believes the years between them can disappear. He believes that if he becomes the man he always imagined, he can make the past happen again. And that's when the story becomes something much darker than a love story. Because Gatsby is about to discover something that millions of people learn too late. You can spend your entire life chasing a dream and still never catch the past. 5 years. That's how long Gatsby has waited. 5 years since he last saw Daisy. 5 years since he left believing that one day he would return as someone worthy of her. Now that day has finally arrived. But Gatsby is terrified. Not of Daisy. Of what happens if reality doesn't match the dream. Because Gatsby hasn't simply remembered Daisy. He has reconstructed her. In his mind, she has become perfect. And perfect people don't exist. Gatsby asks Nick to arrange a meeting. But there's a strange condition. Daisy must come to Nick's house. Gatsby refuses to meet her at his mansion. Why? Because the mansion is part of the fantasy. Nick's small house feels ordinary, human, real. And Gatsby is suddenly nervous. The man who can command an enormous fortune can barely speak when Daisy walks through the door. Daisy enters. Gatsby freezes. For a few seconds, neither of them knows what to say. The man who spent years imagining this moment has finally reached it, and reality is almost too much for him. Then they begin talking, slowly. The tension disappears. They laugh. They remember. And Gatsby realizes something terrifying. The dream might actually be possible. Gatsby takes Daisy to his mansion. He shows her everything. The rooms, the gardens, the enormous collection of expensive shirts, the wealth he accumulated. And then something unexpected happens. Daisy begins to cry. Nick doesn't understand. Gatsby doesn't either. Then she holds the shirts and cries even harder. Why? Because the shirts represent something more than wealth. They represent everything Gatsby has become. The proof, the transformation, the message he's been trying to send for years. Look at me. I'm finally enough. Gatsby didn't build the mansion because he loved architecture. He didn't throw parties because he loved crowds. He didn't collect expensive things because he loved luxury. Almost everything he owns is part of one enormous message. Daisy, look what I became. His wealth is a love letter. His mansion is a love letter. His parties are a love letter. Even the location of his house is a love letter. He positioned himself across the bay, close enough to see Daisy's world, but far enough away to keep dreaming about it. But Gatsby doesn't just want Daisy back. He wants something much bigger. He wants her to say that she never loved Tom. He wants her to erase the years of marriage. He wants her to confirm that everything he imagined was true. And then Gatsby says something that reveals the deepest flaw in his character. He believes the past can be recreated, not remembered. not accepted, recreated, as if 5 years never happened, as if Daisy hasn't changed, as if he hasn't changed, as if time itself can simply be reversed. Nick watches Gatsby carefully, and he begins to understand. Gatsby isn't in love with Daisy exactly as she is. He's in love with the Daisy he remembers. The Daisy from 5 years ago. The Daisy who existed before marriage. Before time changed them. Gatsby has spent years protecting that memory. And now reality is threatening it. Because real Daisy has flaws. Real Daisy has doubts. Real Daisy has a life. And Gatsby doesn't want reality. He wants his dream. Remember the green light. At the beginning, it seemed impossibly far away. Gatsby reached toward it because he believed it represented the future. But now, he is closer. And that's when the meaning changes. Because the closer Gatsby gets, the more fragile the dream becomes. The green light was powerful when it was distant, when Daisy was unreachable. Gatsby could imagine anything. But once he has her standing in front of him, he has to confront the real person. And reality can never compete with an imagination that has had 5 years to become perfect. Gatsby believes he's finally won. Daisy is back in his life. His dream seems within reach. But there's one person standing between Gatsby and his fantasy. Tom Buchanan. Tom has wealth, power, Daisy. And something Gatsby doesn't have, the confidence that comes from believing the world already belongs to him. Soon, the two men will collide. And when they do, Gatsby will discover that money can buy almost anything. But it cannot buy the one thing he wants most, the past. For years, Gatsby believed one thing above everything else: if he became rich enough, successful enough, powerful enough, Daisy would choose him. Now he finally has her. But there's a problem. Tom Buchanan isn't going anywhere. Tom isn't impressed by Gatsby's mansion. He isn't impressed by his cars. And he certainly isn't impressed by the mysterious fortune behind them. Because Tom understands something Gatsby doesn't. Money isn't just about having it. It's about where you come from. Gatsby may have millions, but Tom has something Gatsby can never buy. A lifetime inside the world Gatsby is desperately trying to enter. Gatsby has spent years believing Daisy's love belongs to him. But now he demands proof. He wants Daisy to tell Tom, "I never loved you." It sounds romantic. But listen carefully. Gatsby isn't asking Daisy what she feels now. He's asking her to rewrite her entire past. He wants her to erase the marriage. Erase the years. Erase everything that happened while he was gone. Because Gatsby has convinced himself that their love was frozen in time. And if Daisy admits it, his entire dream becomes real. But Daisy hesitates. And that hesitation is devastating. Because Gatsby realizes something he has spent years refusing to consider. Daisy isn't the woman he created in his imagination. She's a human being. Complicated. Uncertain. Changed by time. Gatsby pushes harder. He insists that Daisy never loved Tom. But Daisy finally admits the truth. She did love Gatsby. But she also loved Tom. And suddenly, Gatsby's perfect story collapses. Because he doesn't want complicated love. He wants certainty. He wants the past exactly as he remembers it. And Nick sees what Gatsby cannot. The dream was never really Daisy. The dream was Gatsby's idea of Daisy. Tom has never needed to imagine himself as powerful. Gatsby has spent his entire life doing exactly that. Tom was born into the world Gatsby wants. Gatsby had to invent himself. That's why Gatsby is so extraordinary and so vulnerable. He believes identity is something you can create. And in one sense, he's right. James Gatsby becomes J. Gatsby. A poor young man becomes a wealthy aristocrat. He transforms himself almost completely. But there's one thing he cannot transform: time. The confrontation ends. Everyone leaves. Gatsby still believes Daisy might choose him. He's waiting outside her house, watching, protecting her, still believing the dream isn't dead. Meanwhile, Daisy is driving back with Tom, and the story is moving toward its most devastating moment. Because Gatsby's dream is collapsing, and someone else is about to pay the price. Myrtle Wilson has spent years trapped in a life she hates. She's married to George Wilson, a poor mechanic. She wants escape. Tom gives her the illusion of it. And now, in the confusion after the confrontation, Myrtle sees a yellow car approaching. She runs toward it. She believes Tom is inside. But she is wrong. The car belongs to Gatsby, and Daisy is driving. The car strikes Myrtle and keeps going. No dramatic speech. No heroic rescue. Just silence. Myrtle is dead. And Gatsby isn't driving. He's waiting outside Daisy's house, still protecting her, still believing that the woman he loves will eventually choose him. But now, the dream has produced a body. Nick finds Gatsby, and Gatsby tells him what happened. But Gatsby isn't thinking about himself. He's worried about Daisy. He tells Nick he'll take responsibility. He'll protect her. Because Gatsby still believes in the same dream, even now. Even after everything. And that's what makes the moment so tragic. Gatsby has reached the point where reality is screaming at him. And he still chooses the dream. Across the valley, George Wilson is devastated. His wife is dead. He doesn't know exactly what happened. But he knows one thing: a yellow car killed her. And eventually, he finds Gatsby, the man who owns the car, the man connected to the death. George doesn't see a complicated love story. He sees the person responsible for destroying his life. And now, Gatsby's obsession has created an enemy he never expected. Gatsby returns to his mansion and waits. He expects Daisy to call. He believes she will still choose him. But the phone never rings. The enormous mansion is silent. The swimming pool is empty. The party guests are gone. And Gatsby, for the first time, is completely alone. Think about what Gatsby actually accomplished. He escaped poverty. He became wealthy. He built an enormous mansion. He became famous. He created a new identity. He got the woman he loved back into his life. And yet, none of it was enough. Because the thing Gatsby wanted most wasn't wealth. It wasn't status. It wasn't even Daisy. It was the impossible feeling of being young again. Of standing at the beginning of his life. Before everything went wrong. He wanted to go back. And that's the one place no amount of money could take him. The next morning, Gatsby is still waiting. Still hoping. Still believing. But someone else is coming. A man who has lost everything. A man who believes Gatsby is responsible. And Gatsby has no idea that his dream has already reached its final chapter. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing about a dream isn't failing to achieve it. It's refusing to wake up when it's already over. The phone never rings again. Gatsby waits, still believing Daisy might call, still believing that somehow the story can be repaired. But Daisy doesn't call, and Gatsby doesn't know it yet. But his dream is already over. The next morning, Gatsby goes swimming. His enormous mansion is empty. The parties are gone. The music is gone. The crowds are gone. For years his house was filled with people. Now, there is almost nobody there. Gatsby enters the pool. And for a moment, everything is strangely peaceful. He waits for a phone call. He waits for Daisy. He waits for the future he has imagined for so long. But the future never comes. George Wilson has spent the night searching for the man responsible for Myrtle's death. He eventually finds Gatsby. And Gatsby is still waiting. Still believing Daisy will return. Still believing the dream can survive. Wilson shoots him. And suddenly, the man who seemed almost larger than life is gone. Jay Gatsby is dead. And then comes one of the most devastating details in the entire story. The people who spent months filling Gatsby's mansion disappear. The strangers who drank his champagne don't come. The people who danced in his garden don't come. The people who called him their friend don't come. Even Daisy is gone. The mansion that once seemed like a symbol of success now feels like a tomb. And Nick realizes something. Gatsby spent his entire life trying to become unforgettable. Yet almost nobody remembers him. Nick tries to arrange Gatsby's funeral. He expects people to appear. After all, thousands of people attended Gatsby's parties. But the crowds never arrive. One by one, the invitations go unanswered. The mansion remains silent. And eventually, only a handful of people stand beside Gatsby's grave. This is the moment when the entire story comes into focus. Gatsby had spent years surrounded by people, but almost none of them actually knew him. He had built a world full of spectators, not friends. And now we have to return to the question we started with. Why did Gatsby become rich? Why did he throw those enormous parties? Why did he build that mansion? Why did he stare across the water every night? It wasn't really about money. It wasn't even really about Daisy. Gatsby wanted something money could never buy. He wanted to go backward. He wanted to return to a moment when everything still seemed possible. Before Daisy married Tom. Before Gatsby became obsessed with proving himself. Before the dream became more important than reality. He wanted to be young again. He wanted the world to give him another chance. Nick looks across the bay. The green light is still there. But now, it means something different. At first, it represented Daisy. Then it represented Gatsby's dream. But by the end, it represents something much bigger. It represents the future we keep imagining. The thing we tell ourselves will finally make us happy. The promotion, the relationship, the money, the house, the next achievement, always something just beyond our reach. And we keep moving toward it. Gatsby's tragedy isn't that he dreamed. Dreaming isn't the problem. His tragedy is that he couldn't accept reality when it contradicted the dream. He believed desire could overcome time, that wealth could erase history, that determination could make another person feel exactly what he wanted them to feel. And eventually, reality won, because reality always does. Gatsby spent his entire life reaching toward a light across the water. He thought it was Daisy, but perhaps it was never really her. It was the idea that somewhere ahead, there was a perfect life waiting for him. A life where everything finally made sense. And maybe that's why Gatsby still feels so familiar. Because most of us have our own green light. Something we tell ourselves, once I reach that, I'll finally be happy. But then we reach it and discover another light farther away. And we chase again, and again, and again. Gatsby spent his life trying to reach the future, while secretly trying to return to the past. And perhaps that's the cruelest lesson of all. You can spend your entire life chasing a dream, and never realize that the thing you're really chasing is something time already took away. If Gatsby's story made you think about your own green light, tell me in the comments. What is the one thing you keep telling yourself will finally make you happy? And if you want more cinematic journeys through the world's greatest books, subscribe.